5 is teach. And I think this is, no matter what it is in life, I think if you're spending part of your time voraciously learning and or growing, which usually you're doing, that's why learning feels good and studying feels good, is because you're growing, and that's a human need. If we're not growing, we feel stagnant, we start to get depressed, we start to feel unhappy, and we don't know why. And it's just because we're the same person year in, year out. So teach other people. And as an actor, that could mean teaching kids. That could mean if you have a special skill like voice, singing, dance, you're teaching side dance classes. And for 2 reasons. One is whatever you teach, you tend to learn it better. So that's why I love the combination. One of my favorite things is on Saturdays, we have our Saturday acting workshop with Todoroff. Then often I'll have sessions right after where other actors are coming in. So I just learned a bunch of things, and I immediately, not all of it, but I immediately get to download some of that information to another person, to another human being, by teaching or sharing an idea. And then instantly it's kind of even more solidified. So there's those reasons. It can really make it land in you. Another reason is just financially. A lot of people's side hustle is teaching whatever it is they're doing to other people.
Being a teacher in general, yeah.
Yeah, and any kind of teacher, it doesn't matter. I think it's a very noble thing, and I think there's a little bit of a stigma that goes along with the term of like, what is it? Those who can't do teach, or something like that. Or sometimes there's a stigma of like, well, who are you to teach? You're not if I'm going to learn this from someone, I'm going to learn it from only the best. And I think that's a real myth and a fallacy. And I think really, the only thing you need to do as a teacher, and I even would probably use the word coach more than teach, is to help someone get from A to B faster than they would if you hadn't helped them. Yes. So you don't need to be a rocket science to teach a rocket science. You don't need to be a rocket science. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to teach grade 11 science, right? But you help that kid get from grade 11 to grade 12 in that spectrum. And the other thing, being a teacher and coach, often, again, people don't want to do that because there's a little bit of imposter syndrome of who am I, or what will other people think, or maybe it happens in the stand-up comedy world a lot, and sometimes it's justified, but sometimes a comedian well on the rise themselves will teach a class on stand-up comedy, and then they'll get flack for other people will be like, oh, he's just teaching that because he's not doing well enough doing it himself. And I think that's kind of bullshit, because certainly you can help someone learn something faster if you have any level of experience. And also your best student, if you think of it this way, I've heard it said, you can always help the past you. Your ideal student is you 5 years ago, or you a year ago. So all of us came, no matter what you're in, at some point you didn't know shit about it. So you were an amateur, you were a nobody, you'd never done it. If you were a comic, you'd never done an open mic. Then at some point you'd never featured. At some point you'd never headlined. Now someone like Patrick, he's headlined hundreds of shows. He's opened his own comedy club. He's done all these things, but at some point he didn't know any of that stuff. So certainly he could teach someone at least to get from who he was 5 or 10 years ago to who he was now. Maybe he couldn't help someone get to where Russell Peters is, because it's a different level, but it doesn't mean that Patrick shouldn't teach someone. That's ridiculous. So I think that's a huge opportunity for people. And just in general in life, I think teaching human beings is like, there's something about passing knowledge down that makes us all feel better. It makes our community better. And it's like, and I think moving forward in the world, this is now going to be a knowledge economy and an information economy. And that means that there's going to be massive opportunities to teach and to learn. And here at Laughing Vikings, like you've imparted a lot of your knowledge, and you've helped a lot of actors here in the studio. And I would encourage others, if you're watching and listening and you want to get involved with Laughing Vikings, that has been huge. All of my teaching and directing, not all of it, but a lot of it has come working with actors here in the studio, and helping out other stand-up comics with their projects as well sometimes. But it comes from doing it in the community that you're in. So whatever city you're in, where your community is, get involved and start helping other people. and teach other people, and you're going to feel good. They're going to feel good. And at the end of the day, you're going to feel like you're actually doing something worthwhile for you and humanity. So worst case scenario, there's that. At the end of the day, be like, hey, I did something good for the world. What is this? Number six? Number six is join a team. Team, community.
Great one.
I avoided this for a long time as a stand-up comic. It's very lone wolfy. Even as an actor, it's not like you're working for one company with employees and a team of people around you all the time. Sometimes you are, and you're lucky if you're in a long show or you're in a theater repertoire company. But for the most part, you're a lone wolf mercenary. So you got to find ways to join a team. Here we have an amazing community at Laughing Vikings. Maybe that's your community theater. Maybe you start your own group. Maybe that's an online group that meets once a week to do readings or to do Zoom reads. Maybe that's just a Facebook group.
Yeah, there are Facebook groups for Zoom reads.
Right.
We'll just join one. Yeah.
Maybe it's team that's not even related to acting. Maybe it's just a fucking volleyball team just to go have a little sense of community and competition too. I think that falls in.
Getting that drive is always hard to pick yourself back up again, kind of thing. So like, yeah, if you can go do a sport or like something competitive,
right,
that's great as well.
Right. And that a sport can also, I mean, it parallels an artistic form, but that sport can be the thing that you're learning. Like that's what you're doing for your body. Sometimes maybe that's helping with your breath and voice as well. If it's cardio, you can be studying that and learning the mastery of that. Then you can also be teaching it. So it's sort of, there's a lot of parallels there. Where were we? That was team. I would just one caveat, be very careful of the team that you're joining, and make sure those are people who represent values that you want to be around. And ideally someone like, hopefully you're the least successful and most uninformed person in most of those communities, so that you're constantly up leveling. If you ever reach the point where you're always perceived as the smartest dude, and you're never around people who are at different levels, then you're probably growing stagnant. So, and also really positive people as well. If you're like misery loves company. Right.
Like someone that's on your side is going to be happy even if they competed for the same role as you, right? Like if we competed for the same role, I would be so happy that Lars got it. Because again, I know that it's going to someone that I respect and know is going to do a great job with it. That's the only thing that matters. Doing the best part possible is what matters. And like for you, again, builds confidence, helps you move on from different things. And like the more you give, the better you're going to feel. But like, again, if I competed with Lars for a role and like, again, he won, I would be ecstatic for him because I respect him as an actor. I think he's fantastic. And I know he'll bring it when he goes on set.
Right. And I mean, we say competed with, but it's like,
well, I mean, there's still
technically we are competing, but technically we're also, it's like you're just competing with yourself, because it's like you're going to get the maximum performance out of yourself, and the chips will fall where they may as far as who they cast, kind of thing. So we're competing, but also we're kind of not as well. But like all we can ever do is bring our best to a scenario. But yeah, it's also misery loves company. So I would just say actors love to moan and groan about, oh, it's slow, or oh, my agent, or oh, this script, or oh, the writing, or blah, 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 blah. Like that doesn't get you anywhere. So just be very, very mindful of that. Strive to be the person who, if you can, be the person who switches that around and gets that person back on the right track. If you can't, you need to slowly disengage from that, or limit your time around those people. And that's family and friends, family and spouse, sometimes harder too, but you kind of got to at least limit your exposure to that kind of stuff if it's a problem, or have a tough conversation with that person. Be like, hey, listen, I love you. I love being around you, but let's figure out a way to make these conversations positive and growth oriented and future oriented, rather than us like how we're talking right now isn't helping. If you're just like this, and we've all done that. Like none of us are perfect. There's been plenty of times where over drinks, class A actor thing is see someone in an audition and then you grab drinks afterwards and you sit around drinking, complaining. Like that's
well, I mean, there's the old saying, if you want to hear an actor complain, give them a job. And like
right.
that shouldn't be the narrative.
That too. Yeah. So just also like that falls under the category of gratitude. And also like if you're complaining about this, get off your fucking horse. Think about how ridiculous. And I've told this to the people before. I'm like, you know how ridiculous you sound complaining about your job as a make-believe storyteller when like literally someone's entire family is on fire right now. Literally right now, somewhere in the world, themselves and their whole family is on fire. And you're like, oh my blah, blah, blah play. Like, give me a fucking break. Like this, like we should be so lucky.